Well, hello everyone, and thank you for being here at the end of the last session. As we've seen for the last few hours, global tension, conflicts, shifting alliance are reshaping our world and the global order. Our next session, and I think it's written here, is Chinese creativity at home and abroad. It might seem counterintuitive to focus our next session on creativity and culture. But in the context of China and Europe, it's not only relevant, it's essential. Sorry, that better? Okay. And of course, it's essential. I would have to say that being the person in charge of culture and art and with partners in crime here to do the programming on arts and culture, you would not expect me to say it's not important. But as geopolitics harden, culture remains one of the last frontier for genuine dialogue. Many of you in this room know that beyond politics and trade, it's often through art, design, film, food, as Joyce said very earlier, food is important, and language that real connections happen. Where diplomacy may falter, art, literature, and shared story continue to build bridges. Creativity is a form of soft power, a way to foster understanding and connection. Europe and China are both cultural giants, with rich history and dynamic creative sectors. But how they express and export culture differs, and often reflecting deeper values. And I want to emphasize on value, because this is what it's all about. Europe champions openness, diversity, and rights. China balances heritage with state-guided modernity. This difference makes dialogue challenging, but also more important and urgent. Beyond identity, let's remember one thing. Creative industries are economic powerhouses. In both regions, they generate millions of jobs and billions in value. From fashion to film to gaming to architecture, creativity is not an expression, it's a strategy. And in today's digital world, where content is shaped with algorithm and controlled by a few platforms, cultural autonomy matters. How we tell story, who gets heard, what values are embedded in our digital space are now geopolitical questions. Lastly, creativity has a role in shaping our shared future. Shared future, which is at the core of Asia society mission and values. From climate change to social cohesion, we need imaginative thinking, narrative that moves people, not policies that just move paper. So why talk about creativity and culture now between China and Europe? Because they help us see one another more clearly, work together more effectively, and imagine futures that we might actually want to share. To run this next session, I will let the floor to two much more dynamic and young and energetic people that will run a very engaging session that will involve all of you. But before I do that, I want to apologize on one of our panelists who is gone. Qingqing, but it was on the original program. Qingqing, as many good dancers, have a back problem. And he is, as we say in French, cloué au lit, nailed in bed, and cannot, at the last moment, could not come. So she apologizes to all of you. She would have loved to be here. But there is a wonderful replacement, and I will let the two, Rohan, my good friend here that I just blanked on the name, Capucine. How can I do that, Capucine, to you? To come and introduce the next panelist. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
We're really far from each other.
Yeah, we're far from each other now, but it will fill up.
Our heart is close.
Yes. We are at the China Summit, and so this session will be slightly different with both English and Mandarin, so get ready for that. I will start by introducing Jiang Chong'er, who is a designer and artist. She co-founded Shangxia with Hermès, which is some of the most beautiful furniture I've ever seen in my life that's inspired by Chinese craftsmanship and tradition. She's also an artist who recently, well, last year, exposed at the Musée Guimet here in Paris, and her exhibition was not only inside, but also outside on the facade with all of her sculptures. So Jiang Chong'er, please come up. Our second speaker, Jia Jiawei, is an award-winning screenwriter. She is the screenwriter of a film that you may have heard of, A Little Red Flower, which was one of the highest-grossing films in 2020 worldwide and has been nominated for 4 major awards. She's also written for other film and TV, and I'm sure we'll hear about it more. Please come up. And finally, I will introduce my brilliant co-moderator before Rohan introduces our final speaker. Rohan is the co-host and co-founder of the Weirdo podcast.
Yes.
I forgot the Chinese name. Can you help me out?
It's fine. I forgive you. 不合时宜.
不合时宜, which has no less than 1 million listeners and talks about a variety of topics from climate, art, culture, to journalism and geopolitics. So over to you.
Yes, thank you for Kapu's kind words. Now, welcome everyone joining me to welcome our final panelist, Huang Rui. Huang Rui was very important in art history of China. He was a founding member of Chinese avant-garde art group, the Starred Arts Group, Xinxin Huahui, which included lots of famous artists you might have heard of before, like Ai Weiwei or Huang Keping. They're also the first publicly active art collective to protest government censorship after the Cultural Revolution in China. And also they have lots of close ties with France as well. So Centre Pompidou actually recently just organized a 30 years retrospective of their works. Welcome. Yes, actually, when we are speaking about the power of the culture, I want to mention a thing when I arrived Paris yesterday. So I live in Amsterdam, and yesterday when I arrived Paris, somehow my mind was just cannot stop playing the music and sing of the movie Amélie. So I feel like that's the power of culture. Because when the culture is spreading to the world, I watched this movie when I was 10, and it's like super influencer among Chinese audience and younger generations. So I think it's just like such a fitting session to talk about culture and creativity in Paris, and also how Chinese culture were affected by the global and how it's affecting the global perspective as well. So my first question would be, since like all of our speakers actually had like cross-culture living experience, all of you actually are living in Western and Eastern before. So my first question would be, how did you perceive yourself and your living experience in Western and Eastern to influence your artworks? So maybe we, starting from the Chong'er.
Okay. 大家下午好 Bonjour, good evening, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here today. And I'm born in Shanghai, in China, and then I came to France, study in Art Deco in Paris. So France and China are both like two parts, very important cultural roots in my life when I create. And so I want to make it short because otherwise I can talk 1 hour about this question. So I think today, 21st century, 2025, July, I think an artist, when you have multi-cultural background, I think today our mission is no more representing our individual expression, artistic expression. I think today's world, we need some artists to try to create at the place of humanity, which I mean, when you create, normally you say what I want to say as an artist. But I think today we have the mission, and it's the time, very important time, that artists, you ask what this world needs and what humanity needs to be awakened, which message we need to pass. And so, like you said, my project at the Musée Guimet, it's about origin, to call that all life stems from same root, that we are not looking for what we are different from our culture. We are looking for through art what we are in common. And maybe with this common power and common points that make people be together and take care of each other, and maybe we can go together to the future. So I think that's how I identify, myself as an artist. Whatever you do as monumental installation, design, or painting, it's more for this. It's keep the soul awakened. And I think today, with the technology, with all of this, very speedy, developed, AI, all of this, it's even more important art. And maybe it's too serious what I say, but I truly believe art is the arc de Noé, how you say English? The Noah's Ark of human being civilizations. And I think art should be beyond language, beyond words. It's how to say, it's a emotion, it's a message, it's a feeling for all of us being together. Thank you.
Yes, actually this question I also want to ask Kapsing, because I didn't mention your background, but actually you are having very rich background living in different place. You are in China for 5 years and you are choosing like very specific location in China like Chengdu or Hong Kong and like Shanghai, so you're being everywhere like in China, and also you are working in Paris now, so like Kapsi also co-founded like a very good platform to promote the women mental health. So I would like to know your opinion about this question a little bit as well when we move forward to other panelists.
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Yeah. How did China shape me, or my experience, my cross-cultural experience? I grew up between Morocco and London, even though I'm French, and then I spent 5 years in China. So I don't think I would be who I am today without the cross-cultural experience. I'm not an artist, unfortunately. I'm a creator in some way. But I think everything we do is informed by our past. And for me, the cross-cultural past informs what I do today as well.
Fantastic. So let's also go to Huang Rui, because I know you live in Paris for 30 years, and Pompidou just had your exhibition. Yeah, I'm just trying to speak the question again. And for 黄瑞老师，我想问您，就是您觉得您在巴黎的生活经历，或者是您之前在中国，然后现在在西方生活的经历，如何影响了你的艺术创作
？Sorry, my English very poor. Actually, I'm not living France. My friend living here, so same group, start group, another member, name is Wang Keping, Ma Desheng. They live in France, and Li Shuang live in France more than 40 years. But for me, I'm just moving Paris start to living last month. Start really. But my partner is French. I have a lot of friends living, even Chinese, French, living in Paris. So I love Paris. One thing. That's it. But another one, I'm not going to here to participate talk. Really, so someone...
To explain, Huang Lao Shi found out 2 hours ago that he was participating in this talk because of what Jean-Michel mentioned, Xinxing est clouée au lit, so she's got her back problem and in bed. But we're so lucky to have you. We really are, I'm not joking. And just to give context, it's so great to have different generations of Chinese artists with us. And you were one of the first contemporary artists that led a movement in China that still inspires the generation today. And so thank you for being here.
Thank you. You gave me brave. So I could say I'm outsider. I'm outside, always standing outside mainstream, or the outside of government policy. I'm not thinking about some idea or some route, some way to build up political way. Standing in a political position. I'm just learning Taoism more than 40 years, The Taoism always push you thinking obsession. So always push you thinking about changing, differencing. So I do that. I'm also participate the first generation after the Cultural Revolution. We decide making avant-garde. Even that time, we don't know that the words of avant-garde. But with some poet and artist, some writer, we have underground group moving Beijing, starting beginning of 70s. And then after the Cultural Revolution, we make very important movement. The name is the Stars. Another name is Today. Today, just last night, I met my really old friend. We had relationship from 1969. Bei Dao, the very famous poet. Bei Dao and me and Monker create underground magazine Today. But Bei Dao is one of really hard decision to keep Today's magazine keep going, upholding more than from 1978 until to right now. Even right now, in China mainland, censored Today's magazine. That is the situation. So, okay.
Yeah, I think definitely in China, the censorship affecting the art and culture a lot, because just looking back my journalism experience, that's the same as well, because I was working for institutional media, and then one of the media was banned by the government. So that's actually basically the story why I started my own podcast. So definitely, if we are talking about culture in China, the censorship and regulation is kind of avoiding topics. So let's also talk with Jia Wei because Jia Wei is a very famous screenwriter and your works cross the film and TV. So how you are also living in Paris now? You didn't move yesterday, right? Moved to here yesterday. So I wonder, like, how did you perceive your working and living experience, and how it reflects your creation?
Comparing to the two amazing artists, especially Huang Rui, my experience is really very short and brief. The moment I feel the most creative, the moment don't often happen when I feel comfort or I feel settled. It's always like when I feel nervous or I feel the obvious existence anxiety. It's like something happened. I feel creative. I moved to London in 2019 from Beijing. Before that, I worked in Beijing as a screenwriter for years. That year, I moved to London for another master degree in the time of Brexit. And immediately after that, it's a pandemic hit. So honestly, I feel the most valuable part of my overpriced British education is learn how to live through math. I once asked Duncan, it's like, because Duncan travels everywhere and Duncan is slightly older than me, sorry, more experienced than me. Yeah. So I asked Duncan, was the world always like this? It's like, it's always changing so fast, or I moved to London, then it began to change. So I asked stupid questions like that. But at that time, the life paused. So I started to question like what was normal and what was the new normal. So, and China and UK, they were coping the situation totally different. So it made me reflect a lot. So after 2 years, I moved to Paris. At that time, it was still difficult to travel back to China. So I kind of stuck here. I couldn't speak French. It's very difficult, so I couldn't understand. I couldn't speak. So I felt like I live in a vacuum, like physically in France, but not actually in it. So I feel at that time, it's like I push myself to ask a lot of questions I never asked before. So for me, the cultural identity is not like about geography or language or other elements. They doesn't define it directly. It's about it's like it's all about the gaps, the frictions, and the moments of confusion between the different cultures. It made me rethink. So for me, the cultural identity is constantly reforming, and it's evolving, it's shifting, it's always changing. But right now, since I live in Paris right now, I find myself have more interest in writing Chinese stories because I come from the Chinese culture, but I'm not defined by thinking of that anymore. So I feel I now have the freedom to carry what I want to carry and keep on reshaping my ways to see the world. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Often you find out more about yourself in a foreign country than in your own country. Our second question for you, since we've spoken about this cross-culture between France and China, is how do you view China's cultural presence on the international stage today, its strengths and its constraints? 然后我也会讲中文。你会如何看待中国艺术和文化在中国和西方的不同之处？就琼儿 since your artwork has recently entered UNESCO's permanent collection, I'd love to hear from you first.
This is a very large question. And from my practice, I think there is always culture, different expressions. But the root, the foundation, there's always something same. We are looking for beauty, aesthetic beauty. We are looking for love. But the expression could be different. And so what I think, from China, as I said, I have double culture, Chinese and French. And so when I try to create, I think last 5 years, I feel particularly strong that a Chinese ink and brush is not enough for me to express. I think it's, as I shared for the first question, it's important to take the feather of humanity, you know. And again, to answer your question, I think China today, everybody talk about China and interest in China. Different people has different understanding, living experience. So China is very unique for each one. And I think art, at least from my personal practice, art cannot resolve, you know, how to say, to find a solution of conflicts, of different opinions, but at least art can open a dialogue, like open a window, a door, like start a dialogue. The dialogue allowed us to talk, to know each other better.
Do you have a concrete example? That
for example, when I create the 12 mythical creatures for Musée Guimet, for example, when the president of Musée Guimet invited me for that monumental art installation, I told myself, here today in Paris, the Olympics, you know, and on the Place d'Iéna, I'm no more only representing China, okay? And I'm dialoguing with the world. So then the 12 mythical creatures, maybe some of you saw them, each of them is calling a collective human being value, calling for peace, calling for freedom, calling for bravery, calling for equality, calling for the nature, the time, the 12 collective human being values. And how I create them, I go back to the history. I find in the ancient Maya culture, ancient Egypt culture, ancient Chinese culture, India culture, we already have mythical creators who were the guardians of different dynasty or period of time. And I invited them to coming out from the history with AI, the technology, which is today, the symbol of today. I recreate 15,000 baby mythical creatures, mixed, métis. They are the métis of human being civilizations. And then, so you will see this, you saw these mythical creatures, they are first time being born, but their parents, grandparents, grandparents, all exist already. So I think, again, you know, as I said, you know, I am Chinese, you know, born artist, but today I really convinced that when you create, is no more representing one nation. It's for people, for humanity, and particularly today. As strong, I maybe share with you a joke, as there's no press here. So I can share with you a joke. There's press here, so I don't talk. No, okay.
good press.
A joke. Okay. So for Musée Guimet project, we were invited for France 24 à la télé, 1 hour talk. And then the journalist, she did not briefing us at all what we would talk. 1 hour, all went very well. Suddenly, she talked to me. You know, Chong-er, as an artist in China, you don't have freedom, you don't have blah, blah, da, 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 da. And then, you know, then she really started to, I was not prepared for that kind of question. And then I make it short. Then I was sweating, but nobody saw me sweating because it's on life. When she stopped the question, I have to answer. And and then when she finished the question, then I replied. I said, first of all, you are talking about, you know, looking for really the, you know, the culture. She's really looking for the culture difference. You know, in China it's like this, in na. And then I told her, you know, today, if we keep looking for our difference to divide us, human beings go nowhere. And today, the mission is to reunite together the human being. And otherwise, you know, what can be, you know, what democracy system, communist, you know, if the human being disappeared, you know, and what the meaning for all of these political systems. And so I was, answering like that. And I, in the end, I told her, I said, today, if I may, if we are in a democratic country, so I'm really calling for the, réunion, like the reunion of human beings. And then, so I make it short. I forgot what I tell, but in the end, it went well. Then she asked the same question to Yannick, the president of Musée Guimet. She replied in a very nice way. She said, the president, as the president of the museum, it's like a culture diplomat. And using culture, you dialogue. With culture, you exchange. And so that's how we went through this kind of dialogue on life.
What a beautiful metaphor. Culture as a dialogue. Huang Rui, I know that the STARS movement, which you were part of in the 70s and the 80s, also received support from Europe, and there was a dialogue between you and Europe. I'd love to understand, Chong-ar spoke about today, but in history, how has this dialogue been, and could you give examples? 我也可以中文再讲。对，就我的问题是关于 STARS movement， 也受到了欧洲和法国的支持。就你可以给我们讲一下，这个支持怎么帮助了你们？然后这个对话就怎么也帮助了你们？也欢迎你讲中文，我们可以帮助你翻译。
对，我先试试我的破英文，先试试我的
好的
破英文。So I start to learn painting really early, so since my 3 years old. Naturally, I remember how to line to make a form, actually, naturally. Then I'm going to little school. I get really good friend. He is son of Zhang Daqian student. Zhang Daqian is very famous. We together, two boys, starting learn ink painting. So we learn from 9 years old to 11, so almost 2 years. So all the class we learning use brush, touch, ink, put ink on paper, just make Chinese character. All of our class starting, just again, repeat. Then Cultural Revolution start. Everything stopped. We stopped learning. His father sent to camp. His father and mother died in second year, 1967. Okay, I restart to making painting from my self-selection. That time, I really love Western music and start reading the novel of Western writers. Really start in myself secretly. Then I start to make oil painting and drawings. I borrowed sketch of Michelangelo from Library of Beijing during Cultural Revolution. Then, very important time for me, changed me. So I'm already think I'm one of a young person to join avant-garde movement. So, but my friend, all of writer, poet, painting not easy directly going to contemporary art. We should to learn step by step. Then one day the French government sent the big exhibition in 1978 showing NAMOC, National Museum of China, Beijing. They select almost 100 master paintings. The title is French painting, landscape painting in 19th century. Then in the last part, two artists, one Cézanne, one Van Gogh. But these two artists, China Academy, the Art Academy, don't want them come to Beijing. They not put in the name list information in the exhibition. I really don't understand the people, the art student going to looking Courbet, Millet, something. Of course, the beautiful painting and Monet. But last one, when I directly in front of Cézanne, sorry, I'm full-time use English to explaining that time. I think it's really brave to me, really open my mind, not my eye, because Cézanne painting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a masterpiece. Placard, still paintings like apple together, then landscape. You know, I'm adhere to talk about you. So my thing, Cézanne paint the painting. It's a different way, like impression artists. The impression artists use really emotional, the color, the beautiful color, but Cézanne not so pure, so clear, use blue or green or pink. Cézanne touch, I'm artist, sorry, touch like a one, go one. Not stop, one, go another one. Just touching canvas. The line in behind follow perspective. But in touching change the way, I discovered that. So that touching, not influence, not for perspective to make landscape, is dialogue for himself, touching, then go another way. It's dialogue, it's a brief, it's an air. So I think, okay, it's broken, is a traditional, so like China art academy use Soviet. So it's still use socialism, realism, still, but it's a tradition. It's a really, when I say, it's like say, so saying should be answer what kind of thematic, but Cezanne really freely. So I found that to make influence to myself.
A bit like what you wanted to, the dialogue you wanted to create at the Musée Guimet, Cézanne did for you in Beijing during the 1970s, which is really beautiful.
Yeah, the next question is also the question that I'm really concerned about, which is about like how art actually reflects the social trends in China. Because like when I was talking with my friends, we used to say I feel like the sense about time is like before pandemic and after pandemic. And because I'm working for the social media and working as a podcaster, so I can receive lots of comments and feel lots of social emotions from the social media to some extent, and I do fear there are lots of social change were happening in China, and it reflects in the movie, films, music, and our content creations. And I would like to ask this question to Jiawei firstly, because she wrote the like she's the screenwriter for the 送你一朵小红花. And also we noticed like last year we had a very famous movie which is called Her Story. And that movie I think really reflects that how feminism is uprising in China nowadays among younger generations. So I would like Jiawei to talk a little bit about it.
I can't speak for other form of art. I could only speak about film. Like in China, the film and TV, they respond to social and culture and ideology change with immediacy, even with foresight. Because on the one hand, I think for Chinese audience, the tickets for films, I think it's expensive comparing to their average salary. So it's like a vote. They vote to their emotion. It's like an emotion vote to the stories which could reflect their internal landscape, their unspoken needs, their unspoken anxiety. So it's like a vote to them. So I think for capital, they are very sensitive and very quick, and all the funds come to those kind of works that could reflect the change of society. For example, for my own project, I finished the script of A Little Red Flower in the beginning of 2019. At the beginning, it went very smoothly, but it didn't went into the stage of production. But after the COVID, the social emotion suddenly changed. People have a lot of desire and anxiety need to relieve. So during the COVID, it's a very difficult time, but the story got the funding with record speed. And it's getting done during the COVID. And when it went to the market, it earned around more than $200 million at box office that year. So itself is telling. And the story you mentioned last year, there were two very popular films in China. One is called Her Story, it's called 好东西. Another one is Decision to Leave, 出走的决心. I think it also tells there's something happening in China right now. Yes. There's a discussion about women's voice and the perspective. It's like you could feel the change. Like, there is like, by the structure or mindset, we have a long way to go to reach the real equality, but you could feel the change. For example, we have some male co-workers that they don't really understand how to respect women, but they got the fear. They got the fear that they will be calling out by the audience. Yeah, so it's in a weird way that this kind of fear urged them to start to listen to the voice of women. They know they couldn't make it all alone by themselves. And the opposite, when there are social sentiment coups, you could feel the difference. For example, multiple producers told me this year, no more love story. No one believes in it anymore. There's no romance in China. It's like you could feel that as well. So I feel it's very quick and direct. Yeah.
So young people doesn't believe love anymore nowadays.
The traditional form of art, it doesn't work at all, and there's no money flowing to it. But maybe there's a new form of love we are still exploring. Yeah.
Traditional love and new kinds of love.
Yeah. The society is changing, I feel.
Yeah, when it comes to women's voice, I would also ask Chong-er, how did you see this question?
Being a woman, I think, is very lucky. If somebody ask me for your next life, would you like to choose again, woman or man? I will choose woman again, being woman. Why? Yeah. I think being a woman, we are very lucky that the life gave us the generosity. I don't mean men do not have, but we have the generosity, we have the multi-task, in our life. We can play.
Turn off the mic.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah. 没关系. So, for example, I'm artist, I'm designer, I have 5 kids, I have a grandson, we have many projects, in China, in Europe, in Qatar, and in the world. And so I think being a woman, my husband always told him he's a French, nobody's perfect. I married with a French. Yeah. And so he always told me that how we can deal with so many projects at the same time, family projects, creative projects, art projects, in different culture, in different environments. I think woman has that generosity as mother. Okay, when the kids coming out from you, it's a very unique experience. And also, I think women, we are lucky because we have this kind of internal soft power. We don't look like aggressively powerful. Now our power is coming from the tenderness. And one of my artwork that I created at Musée Guimet on the roof terrace, I invited the Chinese ancient Nushu. Some of you who may know that almost 1,000 years ago, the Chinese woman is not allowed to study. So they don't know how to write. They have no right to learn how to write. And so they invented a particular secret code, secret language called Nushu, only used among women, writing poems, writing letters, writing songs, embroidery, etc. And only pass it on to women. And so I used that writing character, which represents a lot of bravery of women that time. And I interviewed 60 women about what is the definition of bravery of today as a woman. And that poem is very short, but very strong. And then I used the reinvented secret code of Nushu that I reinvented with traditional Nushu, oracle, Zhuanshu, and Caoshu, a new, women's code. And Cui Wen, you read that book during the inauguration. And then, I think if we use one more, maybe is oser, ose, oser, dare to dare. I think for women, we are daring to dare to do things, without limit. Yeah. I think, again, art is the witness of all of this change that you're talking about, the culture, the generation. Art is the witness. Different generation of artists creating the art of their generation. Yeah. So art played a role like the witness of how society, culture, time changes.
How it reflects in your own work?
I'm trying to living always like 10 years old, That's my challenge. So I always keep myself 10, 15 years old, interested in what is happening all the time. But this is one side. Another side, I'm very deeply connected with history. I always go back to history, to the masters, what they created. They are like already giant mountains, that when you step on giant mountains, you have a different perspective, different angle of the world. So you going up on the shoulder of masters, but you stay young, curious, and same like your kids, And I think with that of contrast, maybe if I'm lucky, I can catch up some secrets of the time, of the presence.
We want to leave some time for Q&A, so I think we're going to open the floor now for questions for any of our speakers, or we also have half an hour, and it's also because you are experts in the room, and it's if you have feedback, things you want to share on the sessions we've had today, or questions you'd like to pose to the room to take outside for drinks afterwards. Peng Fei. Does someone have a mic? Okay, give me. Where is Peng Fei?
So first question is for Jiawei. I was, you mentioned that, Chinese people don't believe in love anymore, or at least the love in the traditional sense. And there might be new forms of love. I was wondering if there's any idea of what the new forms of love involve. Maybe different varieties or something like that. Yeah, I mean, redefining, a romantic relationship or something like that in a societal sense. Well, what do you see that? How do you see that involved? Yeah.
For me, I feel it happens because the structure of the society is changing, and it's very expensive to get in love in China right now. Yeah, it's like we have different definition of home from different countries. For China, I think initially home is, at least there is an apartment there. So it's like it's the fundamental of love. So right now, it's like it's difficult. I don't directly see the number of the changing of the economy, but it's like people are not willing to date. Like if you are going to date, at least you go to the cinema, right? It's like for two people, cinema and dinner, it's at least 30 euro. Yeah, 30 euro. But I don't know the average salary of that in China. For my mom, she was a professor and she got around 500 euro a month. So I think it's quite expensive for people to get in love, and for getting married, the guys have to buy an apartment at least. So it's like, and right now we got social media. So I think it's easier for people to stay connected with something else. You don't need a real human being to get around, to pay a lot of money to get connected. I think it's something happened in Japan, I think, as well, for many years already. So it's happening in China as well. But for the future, but I feel like people still need it in different forms. But I think it's a good chance for the film industry, even though we can't write a traditional love story, but you got emotion from films, or even for TikTok short video, you got emotion. That's what you need as well. For myself, I watch TikTok short films as well. It's like I need emotion from that as well. But not between human. It's about AI produced a dog that he adopt your kids, human kids, and look after the kids. So it's like strong emotion by that kind of video. I think it's like you can use that instead. But I think in the deep down in the heart, we're still longing for love. But it's like we need a trustful way to approach it. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I read a news lately which is talking about nowadays Chinese parents are so busy, so they don't have time to take care of children. And there are so many AI companies rising in China now, so they're producing this company-shaped robot for their children. And there's one day the children just started to call the AI company as mom. So it's like a real story, real news I read on the social media. And I think it's a really threatening somehow. Yeah.
Don't have time for love, don't have time for kids. Is there any other question? Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for your sharing earlier. Just a question. Jiang Wei? Jia Wei, sorry. You mentioned that friction fueled your creativity, especially recently, led you to write new scripts, etc. But talking about Chinese creativity or the creative sector more broadly, and I guess this also applies to yes, sorry, I cannot pronounce your name, but yes. What do you think is driving or are driving the creative forces and the creative sector in China, apart from, I guess, censorship? What are the other, say, more positive drivers of creativity? Thank you.
I can share what I feel is more positive. I came to France at 2000, and I started my own design art studio company very early, 1995. And from that, then 2000 I came to France, and then I went back to China to continue my own studio. And during all of these, I think it's 25 years now, and I can see how China, the creative industry, how it have been hugely developed. 2000, we can say it's a kind of, not dessert, but kind of. And now, if you see the dynamism of all these creative people, it's not easy, but the creativity are there, the creative people are there. And I can see how creative they are. And I'm sorry to talk about France. Compared to France, the creative people, we still have easier life in China to realize now ideas, to try to realize now ideas. If you want to set up a studio company in France, and if you compare to start up a small company, design studio, art studio in China, it's very different. The time, how long you take, and then everything, the procedure, and then everything. And so in China, you can see that. And then second important thing is a lot of partners. Made in China was very powerful, but these made in China manufacturers, 20 years later, they realize how important the creativity it is. So they spend a lot of energy to work with creatives. And that's also, I think, it's the positive energy for creatives in China. And the Chinese culture, China is getting more and more important. You can see during last few years, more and more luxury brands start to dialogue with Chinese culture, inspiration collections. Okay? And Hermes, with me, was one of the very daring projects that we started to create a Chinese luxury brand, the brand of excellence, 2009. It was a huge surprise in the industry of luxury, because we believe in the value of excellence, of craftsmanship, of heritage, from that country. So I think, you know, there is some censorship for sure, but it's not everywhere. And I may share another story without press. For example, the building in center of Shanghai where Shangxia and Hermes, we have now a flagship store. You know, it's a historical building, and it's supposed to be the Pompidou Center, you know, on Huaihai Road. And everything settled. You know, you have Rayan to invest, you know, the renovation. You have the government to give the building, and then in the end, there is a because in China, each exhibition you need to apply a authorization. Okay, and then Pompidou is not happy. They say I'm the best contemporary museum of the world. Why I have to apply an application if I want to do an exhibition? So there is one point who was blocked. But the censorship was quite, how to say, quite precise about a few points that we all know. And so because of this, then the project is failed. Yeah. And then a few years later, it has been settled down somewhere else, in West Bund. So again, what I want to say is that we personally, or what I see, we are still in a very dynamic environment, creative environment. And as Chinese culture raising, more and more, then from the luxury side, from the global culture side, people, they are doing less imposing their business in China, but it's more about a dialogue. Yeah. 你来吧.
Oh, okay. Sorry, what's the question again?
I have one more question.
Okay. So for me, I could only speak for filmmakers. Like, I feel films is like ultimately it's about human beings and about being humans. So for this industry, I feel it's the most innocent people in China. It's like they are all when you want, maybe I think in today's world where the divisions are growing wider and the narratives are growing sharper, but like when we went to a film, it's still a form of art that bring us back to what we share. When you enter a cinema in France or in China, it's like immediately you got the story of others. Like we see how much the Chinese ordinary people and people from France and the US share in common. So it's like you could relate easily. So I feel also we are not documentary, we are not journalists. So it's like story itself, it's a metaphor of life. It's like you got like, we may cry in others' pain, we may cheer in when others rise again. So it's not, for myself, I didn't have touched the bottom line of censorship. It's not a problem for me, for myself, but I can't speak for others because finally it's about human, it's about what we care about. Yeah.
I actually, if I may, I have a follow-up question for you, super quickly. It sounds like, by what you're saying, it sounds like a lot of the culture in China is commercially driven, so luxury brands pushing for it, or I worked in shopping malls and we had art exhibitions. Personally, when I came back to France, I found that there was a slight difference between that and here you have a queue outside the museums to go into an art exhibition. Do you see that as true, or what's your perspective on the topic?
I see it as true. That more and more people are interested in art. Like the Shanghai Museum, they organize an exhibition about Egypt civilization. There's queuing.
Oh, really?
5,000-6,000 people every day, and so when the people are getting more and more curious, and they want to learn. I think one of the Chinese character is we love to learn. There are a lot of young retired people. They are 50, 60, they all learn. My mother, 80 years old, she's learned singing, and so we love to learn. And so I think art is a way that they can learn, they can, talk, have a conversation with the world. And even in the shopping mall, you have exhibitions, you have art installations. And I think one is learning, another is the poetry of life. You can escape. And it's a beautiful escape. It's a poetic escape with art.
Wonderful. I saw just there.
I don't have a question, but I have an observation. I want to reflect on the Chonger's optimism. I think if you think about the creativity, the cultural influence of Japan, Korea, and if you correlate that to the GDP per capita, I think China still have a long way to go, because China's GDP per capita is 12,000, 13,000, and then Korea, Japan, when they are influencing the cultural scenes of the world, their GDP per capita is already, I think, half of the US or almost half of the US, right? So I think China has a long way to go. So reflecting on your optimism, I think China still have a lot to catch on the economic growth. I think you can already see a lot of creativity coming out of China at this stage. So imagine if the government can unleash more benefits to the people. People have less economic burden. I think there will be a lot more cultural influence. And I live in the U.S. and I run a food company, and I think there are a lot more Chinese entrepreneurs who have been living abroad, translating Chinese culture. I mean, the food world, right? So there's so many new ethnic food brands in Paris, in the U.S. Chinese people really understand both cultures, and then introducing ethnic food, ethnic cultures to the Western audience in the language, in a way that a Western audience can understand. And I met so many of them, and I'm just amazed by that. So I think I just want to reflect on that optimism you shared. It just touched me a lot. Thank you.
I see another question here.
So thank you. And I'm actually not working in art industry. I'm working in the motorsport. And humbly speaking, I got really inspired by the speech. So there's a comment that I want to make in terms of the love, the topic. I was actually born after 2000, so I'm Ling Ho. When we talk about is it hard for Ling Ho to falling in love, I cannot represent everyone. But me and my friends, we're still falling in love again and again. Yes, there are still a lot of emotions out there. I don't know what is tradition, but there's a kind of thing in China is maybe worldwide. If you marry somebody, you're going to be with him forever. But nowadays, you may marry a lot of times because, and it's becoming normal, people talk about it. There's a dialogue, we see the movies, we can see a lot of possibilities for female, for male to live in this life. I think nowadays, our generation, after 2000, we got excessive information. We see a lot of possibilities. So it's just, I also feel like we have more, it's more accessible for us to get with art. We can see it on the internet about the Jimei Museum in Paris. We can see the Pompidou in China. So it's just take a little bit of more time for us to deal with this information, to actually learn who we are. So it takes us a little bit of more time and gives us more chance to identify who's actually our lover if we define by ourselves. So that's just a comment.
It's a very interesting remarks. I don't know, do you want to reply or make some comments or?
Yeah, it's very true. When I studied in UK, at that time I was 33 years already, and there's some chemistry between us. Yeah, so when I studied in UK, I was 33 years old already. At that time, I began to dating. It's totally new for me by dating app. When I have emotion or love problems, I go to my classmates who were 22 years old. They will tell me, I got through this when I was 16 years old already. So I learned a lot during these years. So yeah, I hope I can write something for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Zichen also has one question.
If I may joke a little bit, this is more fascinating panel than all the heavy stuff, right? Like, I was wondering if I could actually ask Rohan a question. I hope it doesn't come off as an ambush. Like you're running 不合时宜 the Weirdo podcast, one of the leading, very influential podcasts in the Chinese language, widely available in the Chinese mainland, which is no small achievement. And I think there is considerable Chinese creativity there with you, with your co-host, Qing Wang. And would you like to share, your experience, how to develop that? I understand it has become a major channel of information in China. For example, I bumped into a PKU law school professor like 1 week ago, and she really appreciates the opportunity to highlight some of the jobs she was doing on your podcast, and it's really important public service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zichen. I feel really flattered by your compliment. When I have to speak about my podcast, because I was supposed to be moderator here, so I didn't prepare anything for my own works, but we started our podcast 6 years ago, and that was right before pandemic. I think our works really reflects the change and social ideology in China in the past few years. And I think all of the questions we ask today is also really touching my heart, because we started during pandemic, so we started to make lots of episodes about zero COVID policy, and we made lots of criticism as well. We interviewed the foreign journalists who live in Wuhan in the last train. We also interviewed lots of ordinary people in China who were sent to Fangcang during pandemic. So we are using this way to record ordinary Chinese people's life during pandemic, which I think is very, very important. And I heard lots of feedbacks from our audience afterwards. They were saying, your podcast is so depressing, but it somehow feels very healing during pandemic, because at that moment, Chinese people start to realize how important to really care about social issues, because I think in our culture scene, we don't get used to talk about politics and social issues just because we feel it somehow is a taboo, or it doesn't matter to talk about it on social media because it will be banned or deleted afterwards. But during pandemic, everyone has the desire to talk about it. So I also feel sad because our podcast became popular during that time period, and because we are making so many episodes about zero COVID policy. But I also feel lucky because during that time, it's like a very special window for podcaster or independent creators to make lots of content really related to people's life. And afterwards, I moved to Europe because of lots of reasons. I did my Me Too movement in China, and the media I worked for was banned by Chinese government, so I just feel like there's no way to go. And so I moved to Europe for studying journalism, and I continued to do my podcast. And I'm really proud of me and my co-host, Qing, and she was also invited by Asian Society Switzerland before. In the past 5 years, 6 years, we're working for our medium projects while keep this podcast alive. And we're producing it every week in the past 5 years. So I think I'm really proud of that. And when we moved to Europe, we didn't really stop to concern about social issues, because then Europe started to happen lots of things like Ukraine war. So during pandemic, lots of Chinese journalists cannot leave the countries. So me and my co-host just decided to go to Ukraine and the border of Ukraine to report what's really happening there, which I think is very important to be present as a journalist. And there's so many journalists in China, they don't know what's happening in Ukraine during the time. And also Chinese mainstream media was kind of, not manipulated, but they're like propaganda, a little bit propaganda. And also at the first place, they are more pro-Russian stand. So we bring the ordinary people's voice to Chinese audience and actually shift their view towards the international news a little bit, which really surprised me. I remember this one story was happening between me and my co-host. It's like she's going to Ukraine to interview one of the female soldiers on the front line. And actually this female soldier told her how struggling she was during period. But when she reported this storyline to the editor in the newsroom, the editor is a male, and he was asking why it matters to ask this question, why you are waste this time to ask this question. So we cannot write it down on the newspaper, but we talk about it in our podcast, in our episode. So lots of people were actually impressed by that, that little details, and they thought, oh, it's such, emotional and provoking details that they really related to the soldiers who are in the front line, and they feel like how cruel of the war, instead of just listening to people are talking about geopolitics relations. They cannot relate to how ordinary people were suffering in the front line. So that's the point I realized the power of the story and the power of the creation. I think I will stop here because I probably speak too much.
Thank you, and thank you for highlighting Rohan's incredible work. I recommend everyone listen to your podcast, and I also have a podcast, and believe me, every week must be very hard. Every month for me is already quite difficult. I'd like to open the floor to one last question, if there is one, and if not, I will... One more? Sorry. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Our VIP guest is coming soon.
Yes. Okay. Hi. My name is Haifei, and I'm interning here at Asia Society France. And I thank you, first of all, for this inspiring exchange. And I am curious about the impact of technology, technological innovations and AI in your work. So for you, is AI a creation killer, or is it instead driving even more possibilities in your art? Thank you.
Yeah. From my practice, AI for me is a very good assistant, very good tool that will help me to extend the limit of my imagination, the human imagination. For example, for these mythical creatures, it's like you are making babies. The mythical creature from ancient Egypt from Chinese dynasty Xia or Shang, when they are together, if I watch them, I cannot imagine what could be. I can imagine, but I only have my own imagination. But the AI helped me to give me hundreds of possibilities. And then I can talk with him. I said, what do you think to have some... I talk with him, He is like a partner, an assistant to really extend your imaginations, the board. And so this is one. And I think what AI cannot do that we can do still today is the judgment. Either you say judgment or either you say, like a perspective and opinion, because AI is based on all what existed already. And human being can create something which never or not yet existed. And I think if we find a smart way or a healthy way to dialogue, to talk with AI, it could be, at least for me, it helps me a lot. The AI. And I have a good friend who is like my uncle, who is run the biggest telephone company that you may all know. And I still remember we take a tea once every year. And I remember he told me that one day, if human being fall in love with a AI produced, you can say robot or you can say whatever, but human being, robot human being. And that's the most dangerous thing. And so for the moment, for the artists, for the creative people, AI is a good helper. Okay? But we don't know with which speed the AI can evaluate. And that's why I said art is the witness of each period of time where we live. And that's why I try to use different AI of the different steps of development into the art, to witness the development of AI, and with human being. Yeah. So till now, we are like this. But today, nobody can really predict the future and how fast, what will happen. So it's still full of a lot of unknown and uncertainty.
Jiawei, do you use AI in your work?
For my industry, I think AI is very useful because the procedure of making a film is really very long. For the projects I experienced, at least 1.5 years. So when you began to write a love story, you couldn't predict after 2 years, no one believes in love anymore. So I think AI speed up everything. It's like I once participated in an animation film. It's the procedure of the whole film is 5 years. So at the end of first year, I entered the project, and it's when I enter the office, there is like a blackboard. It says we were 2 months late already at the end of first year. So I think AI, of course, you have many benefits and disadvantages, but the most important is speed up everything. So it gave the capital confidence as well. It makes it a better business.
As a follow-up question, how is social media impacting your work? Our attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter as we get into the habit of looking through reels on TikTok, on Douyin,
Yeah, so I feel nowadays audience, they have shorter focus on they pretend to like shorter TikTok video or something, that's for sure. But I think the cinema will always exist because at the beginning, the birth of cinema, at that time, filmmakers, they are fighting with bistros and pubs, they are getting the attention, like they compete the attention from that. So I think it's like it happening, but I think they're different. Yeah.
I have a very quick follow-up question. So nowadays, like my industry are really worried about to be replaced by AI. I don't know how about your industry. Like, do you think screenwriters can be replaced by AI someday?
I was happy to hear that screenwriter was the last one to be replaced by AI last year. But after using ChatGPT for 1 year, I'm not so sure about it. So yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question. We're still waiting for a VIP guest. So.
Thank you. My name is Yalin, and I'm also in the art industry. But this question is from Ruby. So she wants to ask which kind of your software you use for AI. That's first question. Yeah, you, because you said ChatGPT, so I just, that's very important. And the second, from my personal view, I'm also live abroad and left Shanghai 20 years ago, and I travel a lot of countries as a Chinese, and now I go back to the creativity, and I'm also lost. I mean, sometimes you have to, also your kids have to identify you are Chinese or not because you live abroad. And as an artist, I'm especially question for Chong'er. And what is your thinking about the creativity as an artist and the creativity and identity for your kids? So,
okay.
Yeah. Just for the final.
Okay. So for the application that I use ChatGPT, I use Midjourney, and I use, there are a lot of small AI applications. Midjourney and ChatGPT are the most famous. Otherwise, there are small, very particular apps, AI application for different use. And we can talk about later, but these two are the most famous and most popular. And again, the application is here. It depends on how you use that. ChatGPT with you, living with her after 6 months, and living with me after 6 months, there will be two ChatGPT people, and very different. And this is quite. You can say worrying or you can say happy, they really know you. And they remember all what you ask them. And they have all the memory. They don't forget. even I forgot, sometimes they don't forget. And yeah, it's true. And yeah, and once you get used to that, it's a kind of a new lifestyle, you know. Yeah. And for your question, I have 5 kids. So for my kids, they are Chinese for sure. That's why I keep that they speak good Chinese. They can repeat Chinese poems. They can draw. They can, you know. It's not only about language. The culture is not about language. It's about the culture and the mindset. So what I wish is that they can understand the Chinese language plus culture mindset, and they can understand the French way and maybe the British way. I mean, the Anglophone, the British way. And then once you have that kind of architecture in your mind, you are free. You are free, you know, in your life. You can go different places and you can adapt. I think for the future, the most important quality that kids need to, we need to help them, one is the capacity of adaptation. You know, wherever you go, you dialogue, you discover, you explore, you adapt with your own route, and you enter. Once you enter, you can find your home somewhere. You know. First is the capacity of adaptation. Second, a beautiful personality. That's very important. And then the third is, how to say, a kind of a healthy, positive, healthy mindset, you know, like, yeah, this is very, because you always have difficulty, you always have uncertainty, and with that, you go without fears, you know. And if the parents can help little bit network will help, you know, to give them some keys, you know. This is very pragmatic, but if you have little bit network, you can help and support them, that will be very helpful too, yeah. So this is what I think.
Thank you so much. And I believe that more and more children and people are living between cultures now, and it's a way to be able to take the best of each culture that we participate in.
Now comes the heavy stuff. You've had a good time hearing about tech. So